Okay, it is day 5. Welcome to the Power Skills Masterclass. And today we are diving into something that impacts all of us. You guys, it is one of the number one reasons for anxiety and fear and distrust and or mistrust, whichever word, however you say that word, lack of trust, right? So listen, there's a quote that I wanted. Actually, there's several quotes I'm going to share with you today. And the first one that I want to share is a George Bernard Shaw quote. And the quote is: "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion it has taken place." The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion it has taken place. All right, listen, like I have said probably a million times in lives and interviews and on stage, and even during this series, I teach this stuff, I coach on this stuff, I consult on this stuff, I train on this stuff, and yet I still bump into these same things. Okay. So if that quote, again, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion has taken place, is the illusion it has taken place. If that quote like hits home for you, believe me, it did for me too, the first time that I heard it. And I still have instances where this pops up. Had it happen just a few weeks ago where I thought that a conversation between myself and someone else had gone one way. And then I heard from someone else what this other person had said, and it was not what I thought had taken place. So, you guys, communication is complex. There are a lot of variables that are going on within this idea of communication. So today we're going to dive into some of that, and I want to help you become more aware of the complexity of communication and ways that you might be able to make it a little bit easier on yourself and everyone around you. And look, when I'm talking about this stuff, I'm not talking about just communication with your work teams. I'm talking about communication from every aspect in your life: communication up, communication down, communication to the side, communication with your kids, communication with your spouse, communication with your community, communication at work. Okay. There are a lot of different aspects to communication, and we all can continue to learn. There's always room to up level with this. All right. So, who am I? What do I do? Why am I talking about this? I am Angela W. Stillwell. I am the CEO and founder of Untapped Strengths, and I work with individuals to transform them into the top 1% leaders and teams into powerhouses. Now, that gets started for a lot of different reasons. Oftentimes, there is a health issue going on, or a wealth issue going on, or a relationship issue going on. And we dive into all of these aspects around those 3 areas in life, right? And this is true whether we're talking personal or business. Okay. So, one of the things that I often find when clients come to me is, excuse me, I've got like this vibration in my voice today. I'm not sure what that's about. One of the things that I often find with people when they come to me is they've had this problem going on for a while, and they haven't known how to fix it, or how to go about it, or what the best solution might be. And there are a lot of different pieces that fall into whatever is going on in their lives. All right. And I heard a quote I don't know, earlier this week. I can't remember what day it was. And it was a W. Clement Stone quote. And his quote is: "The number one enemy of wealth is not mindset, it's delay." The number one enemy of wealth is not mindset, it's delay. All right, listen. Yes, W. Clement Stone is absolutely correct that oftentimes the biggest issue with anything, building great relationships, having great communication, building wealth, improving our health, delay is the issue. And underlying that delay is something that's going on in your mind. What is it that is causing you to hold yourself back? Okay? And what I find in this whole world of communication is that there's a lot of fear and anxiety and a lot of uncertainty that bubbles up in people. And so they start delaying, they start slowing down, they start backing off, they procrastinate, right? And so what we get to do is figure out why there's that delay. Why is there that procrastination? Why are we not leaning in and having the conversations that will make the difference? Okay. So you guys, I have so many quotes that I want to share with you. Oh, here's the bottom line. Communication is the bridge between confusion and clarity. It's the bridge between confusion and clarity. Now, if you just have very ineffective communication or you're choosing to not communicate at all, you're going to stay on that confusion side, right? If you are not having effective communication, then confusion is going to be where you remain. All right. There's a quote by Nelson Mandela that says, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, it goes to his head. If you talk in the language he speaks, it goes to his heart. So in order to get to that clarity, what we get to do in communicating with people is learn what is the best way for them to actually hear. So communication is about the sender and the receiver both getting the same message across, right? The sender and the receiver. So when you're in this place of communicating with someone, are you doing everything possible? And communication with someone isn't just you speaking to someone else, it's also you listening. We're going to touch on some of that in today's session as well. It's not just about you speaking, it's also about you listening. What listening skills are you using? What is your way of being during the communication? There's so many aspects to communication that people don't take into consideration. There's body language, there's personality, and we're going to get into all of that today, okay, in the next few minutes. All right, so making sure, again, effective communication is making sure that the sender and the receiver both have the same message. You know, I don't know about you, but that can be one of the biggest challenges, right? Like I said, I just experienced this. If you're just hopping on, I just experienced this a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation with someone and I thought that, you know, the communication was perfectly clear or thought that I had heard it perfectly clear. Okay. And then I was talking with someone else and got a different interpretation based on what this person had told them. And then it was like, okay, well, now which one is the right one? So what I got to do in that instance was go back and have another conversation, right? Have another clearing conversation. What really was said? What really was meant? What was the intention, right? Not just what did I hear. Okay. So here's what happens. There's really 4 areas where we often have issues in our communication, whether we are the speaker or the listener. Okay. There's the need to be right. Some of these are going to be a little painful to admit to. The need to be right, the need to be in control, the need to look good, and the need to stay safe. The other day, I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we'll jump into that today. But listen, all of these relate to that. Okay. The need to be right, the need to be in control, the need to look good, and the need to stay safe. I have found myself in every single one of those places when I have been communicating in the past, when I have been speaking in the past, and when I have been listening in the past. And I'm sure that there will be times in the future where those pop up again. Now, here's the thing. As an effective communicator, I get to check myself, right? I get to listen in and go, okay, what am I saying? What is the meaning that I am giving to this? What is the lens through which I am looking to see, hear, feel, and know what is going on between me and this other person, or me and these other people, right? And that's what we all get to do, because we all have the need to feel safe, the need to be right, the need to look good, right? The need to be in control. You guys, as a child, being in control was the biggest thing for me. But it all lent itself to looking good, feeling heard, being right, and staying safe, because I lived in such a dysfunctional environment. And if you are in a dysfunctional environment right now, whether that's work or that's home, if you don't feel safe, then communication is going to be hard. Communication is going to be hard. Effective communication is going to be particularly hard. Okay. You may be communicating and you may be getting nowhere. If you're feeling unsafe, if you're constantly needing to be right, if you're constantly needing to be in control, if you're constantly needing to look good, then communication is going to be difficult, whether you are the speaker or the receiver. Okay. All right. So, perspective. Look, we see this everywhere today. Everyone has their own perspective. Have you been on social media lately? These are all broadcasting on social media, on different platforms, on YouTube. Excuse me. Sorry. I have people working in my yard right now, so I apologize. No, Simone, no. I had a tree that fell, and so they're out there working, and she just heard that. So my apologies. So, all right, back to perspective. That's where I was. Seeing it everywhere, right? This is broadcasting on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and, many places right now. And what happens is people bring their personal lens and perspective to everything, and then they get on their keyboard and they become keyboard warriors, is what I love to call them. And they want to espouse their own perspective, looking through their own lens, their own thoughts and beliefs, and not pay attention to what anyone else is experiencing. Look, everybody out there has their own experience. Everybody out there has their own perspective. Everybody out there, every single person, every single one of you watching this right now has your own perspective. And it's been based on everything that you have been through in your life. Everything that you have been through in your life is impacting your perspective. Everything from when you were a child, when you were at school, church, work, relationships, good, bad, or indifferent, it all impacts your perspective. And guess what? All of your communication flows right through that lens and that perspective. So what do we get to do in order to have effective communication? Listen, I will tell you, when I was married, communication was one of the biggest things that impacted my marriage. It's one of the biggest reasons that we ended up divorced. I grew up in a family where there was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of discord, there was a lot of dysfunction, there wasn't a lot of effective communication by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't learn how to do that. when you're moving in the middle of the night, when you are constantly changing schools, when you know that you're not going to be around very long, when you're not building connections with people because you know you're not going to be around very long, you don't develop those skills. And I had not developed those skills. And what I did, though, was when I found myself going through my divorce, this is, I was separated for a couple of years and the divorce was final in 2013. So it's been a while, right? While I was in the middle of all of that, though, one of the things that I really started working on was, how do I better communicate? How do I have better relationships? What do I get to do so that I don't have those same fault lines going forward? It's not to say that they're completely erased, because life continues to evolve. Every person that you run into, it's going to be different. And what do we get to do so that we can be as effective as possible in every scenario? It's not 100%. You guys, there's nothing that's 100%. So what do we get to do? That's why the anxiety piece is huge in communication. That's why the fear piece is huge in communication. What is the meaning that we're giving to it? And particularly if there is a difficult conversation that has to take place. Like, what do you do when you're in a work environment and there's something going on where you need to have a difficult conversation? Most of us tense up. Our shoulders get closer to our earlobes. Our guts tighten up. Our bellies hurt. Maybe even our heads hurt. Our temperature may go up. There may be all sorts of things that are going on. What happens is we move into our amygdala and we start operating from fight or flight or freeze. Okay. It's our brain keeping us safe. It's perfectly normal. You're not to blame for that. It is actually the way that the brain operates. Your brain operates to keep you safe. It doesn't operate to help you thrive. It doesn't operate for you to get to success. What it does is it works to keep you safe. And when I was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what that means is it's working to keep you down at the bottom of that hierarchy. Your physiological needs and your safety. Anything above that, it's not looking for that. It's not working on that. As long as you have food, shelter, as long as you feel safe, your brain is happy. The moment that anything changes, though, the minute that there is anything that is out of alignment, then it goes on high alert. And you guys, I keep repeating this over and over and over again. All of this, even though Clement Stone said that the number one enemy of wealth is not mindset, it's delay. It is delay. And that delay is because of some thought, some belief, some meaning that we're giving to whatever the situation is. Okay. All right. So when you look at the perspective, mainstream media, social media, you see it everywhere. The perspective these days is all through a lens of fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety. Everything starts from there these days. You are the only one that can shift that. Only you can shift that. I sound like Smokey the Bear. Only you can stop a forest fire. But yeah, it's true. Only you can stop it. So what are some of the ways that that we get to make adjustments? Active listening is a huge one. Active listening, where we are listening to actually understand, not to reply. You guys, I still do it. I still listen to reply, particularly if I'm excited about something or someone's talking about something or a place I've been before or a food that I really like. And I'm like wanting to share in the excitement, right? I'm not always listening to understand. Sometimes I'm listening to reply. Ever been there? Is it just me? Am I the only one? I know I'm not the only one. I know that some of you have had the same thing happen. I do this exercise when I'm in training classes, and I take the room through this exercise to see what it is that they are hearing. And without fail, about 50% of the class is freaking out doing this whole exercise, and there are just a few people who get the answer right at the end. And if they had have been listening to understand, you'd get it right straight away. Okay. So if I'm ever doing training at your organization, listen to understand, not listen to reply. Then you'll be one of the ones who gets it right. All right. So the other thing that there's a couple of other things that impact this the communication aspect. One is personality type. I talked about this the other day. If you've done DISC and you're a high D versus a high I versus a high S versus a high C, dominant, interpersonal, support, and compliance. So if you are really high in any of those, particularly like a high D speaking with a high S, let me tell you something. Communication, you're going to need to style flex. You're going to need to style flex because a high S communicating with a high D is going to feel like they have been run over. And I used to do this all the time, not realizing that's what I was doing. I didn't understand why people were like, my God, she's so aggressive. My God, she's loud. My gosh, she's whatever, right? And it's because my inherent way of being is that high D. I'm a high D, high I, very low S, and a very low C. And so when I am communicating with people who are high S's and high C's, I can come across like, excuse me, like a bull in a china shop. So, and when I'm listening to someone who is a high S or a high C, my eyes glaze over and I feel like, holy cow, could they be any more passive? Right? So there's this whole thing of being able to style flex so that the message can be received. Right? All right. And then looking at, that's also why there's the assertive, passive, and aggressive. You want to come in at assertive. You don't want to be on the passive end and you don't want to be on the aggressive end. And that's going to look different in every single scenario. Every scenario. You get to pay attention to what's going on around you. If you're working in an ER environment and an emergency comes in, then yeah, you're going to be, bolting out, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's just the way that it is. No one gets their feelings hurt in that scenario. However, if you're working in an ER and there's not an emergency going on and you're belting out directions like that to people, probably going to look aggressive, right? So you get to flex based on the scenario, the surroundings, the people. There's a lot of different ways to style flex. Just be aware of what's happening in the scenario. All right. The other thing, there's a couple of advanced listening skills too. I said that this communication thing is not just about the speaking. It is also about listening, right? What is not being said? I'll go back to my childhood. I got very good as a little kid being able to read what was not being said because that was how I survived. What was not being said was a heck of a lot more important than what was being said. I started reading body language. What are the facial tics? There used to be this show called Lie to Me. And it was about this guy who was a professional witness, and his company would come in to find out if these witnesses or defendants or whatever were lying. And he would read facial tics, muscle tics, and also, body language and all of that. And I love listening to body language experts, and, they have them in the CIA and in the FBI and in lots of different arenas where they're reading that body language. And I did that inherently as a child. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing in order to survive. And it did save my life on more than one occasion. So, if you haven't had to do that, it's one of the things that, over the last few years, it drove me crazy so often when I would see mothers with little babies wearing masks. Now, I get there are some scenarios where it's a necessity, and to do that all the time with your baby is not learning to read facial expression. So you're delaying that developmental response in a child. When you have, if I operate like this and you can't see the lower half of my face, you're now using a smaller percentage of what you could be using in order to determine what my message really is, right? Makes a huge difference. If you can see my smile, if you can see what's happening in my face, if you can see my body language, if you see me leaning in, right? Makes a huge difference. So what's not being said? Flexing style. I've already talked about that. Flexing your personality, flexing style based on who you're speaking with, what the environment is, where you are, what's happening around you, and asking better questions. You guys, I cannot stress the importance of being able to ask better questions. Once I started learning how to ask better questions of myself first, for instance, why is this happening to me? Versus, how is this happening for me? What can I learn from this? Why is this happening to me is a victim mentality. How is this happening for me? Now I'm taking responsibility and I'm gleaning the lesson, right? So asking better questions of ourselves. If you're in a conversation with someone and you are getting a particular reaction, what if you ask yourself, what's happening here that's causing me to feel anxious, or causing me to feel excited, or causing me to feel happy, or causing me to feel sad, right? The other day I spoke about what the 5 or 6 core feelings are. Think about it. When you're in communication with someone, ask yourself, get real curious. What is it that is coming up that is bringing up this emotion? And it's usually based on something that's from your past. We are putting meaning to something based on our interpretation of it. Okay. All right. So precise versus concise language. Precise is, specific words to create a specific mental image. And then concise is using as few words as possible. I know that I am someone who can get wordy. I know that. And so often when I am writing, I will write over and over and over again, taking out words, taking out lines, taking out stuff over and over and over to get it concise. Have you ever tried to write a social media post, and particularly like on Instagram or LinkedIn or something, and it says it's too long? Twitter taught us, now it's X, but used to, Twitter had a very limited number of words, right? And so, or characters. And so people learn to write in these like ridiculous sentences on, doing tweets. Well, it's the same thing on LinkedIn. It's the same thing on Instagram. It's the same thing when you are speaking to a human being. People can only receive so much. Our attention spans are less than a goldfish. Less than a goldfish. Studies show that our attention spans are less than a goldfish these days. We are bombarded with information all day, every day, over and over and over. It has 10x'd over the last probably 20 years as to what the number of messages that we get every day. I think today it's somewhere like 30,000 plus messages that we receive every single day. It may be higher now. I can't remember when the last study was done, but in the 90s, it was like 3,000 messages a day. I'm talking social media, I'm talking radio, I'm talking TV, I'm talking, email, hard copy mail, right? We get so many messages every day, our brains cannot process all of them. So when you are wordy, guess what? Your message is getting lost. It just is. So some of the challenges are lack of trust, lack of time, anxiety, fear, culture, lack of clarity. All right, I want to touch on this trust thing though, but the trust thing, we're at a time in society where trust is at the lowest point it has ever been. Since the end of, well, I guess really during the 60s, it started declining. And oh, what's the name of the book? Bowling Alone. Is that it? Bowling Alone, I think, is the book. It talks about how people used to do more things together in their community and they trusted their neighbors. And today we just don't do that. How do you know all of your neighbors? Used to, you would have. We don't anymore. We move to new cities. We move away from family. We don't know the people who live in our building. We don't know our next door neighbors. We don't trust our government. We don't trust anymore. Trust is down something like 70% since the 60s. It's only at like a 20% trust rate. So trust is huge. What can you do to improve the trust with the people with whom you're communicating? And know that, I talked about having my hand over my face and you not being able to see what was happening with my face. Understand that in communication, only 7% of communication is about the words that you use. 7% is verbal. That's it. The other 93%, vocal, the tone of voice, whether I'm excited or whatever, 38%. And then the visual, the physical, what are you seeing when we are communicating is 55%. So the words that you use, it's only 7%. You want to know why on social media, when you post a selfie picture with your post, why it gets more responses? It evokes more of a response because people can see you. They can see you. You may not be speaking it. However, the picture that you post, particularly when it's of you and you're the poster, gives them some of that visual aspect. It's not the intonation because they can't hear it, right? It is that physical part, though. It does allow them to see you and they can connect at a different level, a deeper level with you. All right. So when communications matter most, when you're in dire situations or when you're in a heated situation, there's a lot more pressure. So you get to prioritize what's most important in this situation. You get to also foster healthy response. So taking time for yourself. It's fine if you are in a situation where you find yourself like leveling up, like you are just escalating and escalating and escalating. Call a timeout, call an audible, call a timeout and say, you know what? I need a few minutes. I've got to step out because I'm not in a place where I can respond responsibly. So I get to go collect myself. Okay. And the other person gets to honor that. You're not responsible for how the other person responds to that. You are responsible for taking ownership of knowing what's happening within you so that you can respond rather than react. All right. Time to recharge and seeking support. Look, if you are constantly in a state of unrest, anybody ever heard of hangry? You guys, I can get hangry. If I am hungry and I am like at that point where I need food, that is not the time to have an in-depth conversation with me. And I'm sure many of you are the same way, right? So make sure that you're getting nourishment. Make sure that you're getting rest. Make sure that you are doing things to take care of yourself, particularly when there is in-depth communication going on. All right. And I've kind of talked about this already, why communications are so hard these days. physiological needs, safety and security, love and belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization. So when that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The base level is the physiological needs. The next is safety and security. Then you have love and belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization. Right now, in this environment, listen to me, in this environment that we've been in since the world shut down. Anybody remember what happened in the spring of 2020? Listen, you guys, the world was operating from a place of fear and anxiety, and they are continuing to push that agenda. You get to choose if you're going to lean into that or not. Because listen, if you lean into that fear and anxiety way of being, then you never, ever, ever, ever will get above physiological needs and safety and security, because you're going to hover down there. Low energy. You're not able to see a bigger picture. You're not able to make good decisions. You're not able to do critical thinking when you are operating from a place of fear and anxiety. You're not able to communicate well. You're not able to be resilient. You're not able to be adaptable. You're just not. When you are operating from fear and anxiety, all of these power skills that I've been talking about and the ones that I will continue to talk about, they're not going to be in your back pocket to use. So you get to choose. Are you going to allow the fear and anxiety to continue to drive you? If you are, that's great. That's your choice. I would urge you, though, to think about that. What are your goals and visions? What is it that you're wanting to accomplish in life? What is the purpose that's been laid on your heart and on your mind? To the purpose to be, the purpose to do, the purpose of who you are. What is that that's laid on you? Think about that. To accomplish that is not going to happen from a place of fear and anxiety. To be a good communicator is not going to happen when you're operating from fear and anxiety. It's just not. So I challenge you, I beg you, I encourage you. Where are you operating from fear and anxiety in your life? Where in your relationships? Where in your health? Where in your wealth are you operating from fear and anxiety? This is important. This is like true shift making, game changing. Think about it. Where are you operating from fear and anxiety? All right. So when you're looking at this cycle of mistrust, what happens is there's observed aggressive behavior, then there's a negative assumption based on it, and then there's self-protective behavior because of it, which then leads to more observed aggressive behavior, more negative assumptions, and then more self-protective behavior. You see, it just keeps happening. It just keeps cycling and getting deeper and deeper and deeper into that self-protection, lower and lower and lower on that hierarchy of needs, right? That's operating from fear and anxiety. That is what leads to the cycle of mistrust. That's what we've been seeing for the last several decades in the world, in all of our communities. We get to be the ones to shift that. However, when you're operating from a cycle of trust, there's openness, there's diversity, there's transparency. So the diversity reinforces openness. Openness enables transparency. Transparency fosters diversity. And that continues to cycle. So it's a choice. It is a choice in how you decide to operate. What's going to be your decision? What is your choice? How do you want to operate going forward? And then when there is trust, listen to me. When there is trust, here's the beautiful thing. When you are developing trust, when you have that feeling of safety, when you have those feelings and you are able to move up into love and belonging, when you are able to move higher up that hierarchy, guess what happens? Your body starts producing the good neurochemicals as opposed to the bad neurochemicals that fear and anxiety produce. Fear and anxiety keep you in cortisol, which is horrible for your health, causes you to gain weight, causes you to lose sleep, causes you to eat crappy foods. Okay? When you are in a place of trust and you are moving up to that loving and belonging because it's your decision, then you start producing oxytocin, you start producing serotonin, you start producing these neurochemicals that allow you to elevate. It allows you to communicate better. It allows you to be more adaptable. It allows you to be more resilient. It allows you to be more emotionally aware. When you are operating from that fear and anxiety, you can't get to that love and belonging or self-esteem or self-actualization. It's just not possible for a whole host of reasons. Part of it is your physiology, your chemical makeup, what happens in your body, what's happening in your brain, etc. So what you get to do is take responsibility, decide. You get to decide right now, make a decision. I'm 100% responsible. I'm 100% responsible for how I respond. I'm 100% responsible for the consequences. I'm 100% responsible for outcomes, etc. You may not be 100% responsible. I think I said this the other day. It may not be your fault that you are down, but it is your duty to get up. It's your responsibility to get up. Someone else may have tripped you. You, however, get to choose to get up. You get to choose to not operate from the fear and anxiety. You get to choose to have the difficult conversations and move beyond the fear and anxiety. You get to choose to have an improved level of communications. And when the communication goes sideways, you get to choose to have more conversation so that there's a better understanding. It's not about convincing, it's about understanding. Okay. All right. So, making sure that you have enough time. You know, if you're having a difficult conversation, don't come at it when you know you got to be somewhere else in 15 minutes. Just don't do that. That's not respecting you, the issue, or the other person or other persons, right? So adequate time, clear and realistic agenda, right? And then general differences in personality. Just remember that everybody's personality is a little different. I mean, we all have our quirks. We all have our beliefs. We all have the things that have impacted us up to this point. So just recognize that. Not everyone is operating from the same place you are. All right. Creating accountability, dealing with uncertainty, creating accountability and dealing with uncertainty. Dealing with uncertainty. The only thing that's certain is that there is uncertainty. The only thing that is certain is that there is uncertainty. I could get into the whole thing of, what are the human drivers and certainty and uncertainty and all of this kind of thing. People often think that that they don't like uncertainty, and yet we all need to have a little bit of uncertainty. Reality is we all have a lot of uncertainty. Okay. So when you're dealing with uncertainty, it's not about resisting the uncertainty. Lean into it, right? Lean into the change, because life is going to change. Things are going to change. That's a given. Invest in yourself. How are you investing in yourself? Pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening. Pay attention to what's happening within you. Seek healthy alternatives. So often when we are dealing with uncertainty, we will do things to numb. And that may look healthy and it may look unhealthy. Maybe you're exercising, right? To be an alternative to your angst. And that's great as long as you're doing it at a healthy level. Exercising can also become a way of numbing. because exercise creates certain neurochemicals. And if you do too much of it, it can lead to cortisol. You guys, I can dig into all of this stuff so deep, and I only have so much time today, and we've already gone way longer than I normally do on these. And then don't believe everything you think. Yeah, don't believe everything you think. Listen, I would love to do a connection call with you. How do you do a connection call? If you go to the link that you see on the screen, you can get scheduled for a connection call. And these connection calls, I love doing them with people. I want to know what's going on for you. What is it that's coming up? What is your biggest challenge right now? What are your biggest goals? Where are you wanting to go next? Let's see if we can figure out what that best next step is. I just want to know about you. What's happening for you these days, right? So you can go to the Linktree link. It's on the screen. Linktree/AW Stillwell, linktr.ee/AWSTILLWELL. If you look on there, I believe the first button is to sign up to for this masterclass. You can still get signed up for this masterclass, and here's what will happen. You will get the replays, because at the end of this masterclass, these replays are coming down, okay? If you sign up, you're going to get access to the replays of this masterclass. You will get the audio version as well, so that you can listen to it on the go. And you're going to get a workbook that helps you work through some of this stuff. So I hope you'll get signed up. And then just below that button on the Linktree app is a link to sign up for a connection call. So I can't wait to have those connection calls with each of you. I appreciate all of you who have been joining me live, and those of you who have watched the replay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this weekend, I will be joining you again. We'll be doing some Q&A this weekend. I've been getting some great questions, and I can't wait to answer them for you. I will see you Saturday and Sunday back here, same time, same place, noon Eastern, and we'll be doing Q&A. And meanwhile, have a great rest of your Friday. And if there are any questions or anything that you have that you want me to touch on, feel free to put it in the comments or send me a DM. You can do that on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever your favorite place is to send DMs. You can do that, or you can put it in the comments wherever this is showing live. All right, you guys, I can't wait to see you over the weekend and the first part of next week. Have a great Friday and a great remainder of wherever you are. See ya.